Well, good morning and welcome back to Life of Christ. I trust your Thanksgiving was refreshing, it was enjoyable. It was one, I hope, like it was in our home, one that was surrounded by thankfulness and by Thanksgiving. I want to jump in here. We've only got, I think, 3 classes left. I'd say I'm going to miss seeing you, but I don't see you. And I'm sure at this rate, you are tired of staring at my mug. Oh, let me turn that off. Excuse me. I'm tired. I'm sure you're tired of staring at my mug. So maybe this is appropriate that it's ending soon. Let's begin our time together in this class by looking at Ascension and Enthronement. Ascension and Enthronement. Christians have a tendency, we all do, Christian or non-Christian, to sort of truncate things, to compartmentalize ideas and concepts and realities. And in theology, we tend to truncate truth. So what I mean by that is that we have an ever-present danger or temptation where we too often divide up the work of Christ to the point that the work of Christ is isolated. And so for example, the very fact that next month we will celebrate Christmas, and no doubt most churches, I hope, will emphasize and focus in upon the incarnation of the God-man. But what other times of the year do we hear about the incarnation, about the eternal Son of God assuming a human nature, taking to himself a human nature like us? And I think that for most churches, that's Christmas, man, right? Like that's sort of what Christmas is about. So that's what we do it. So we run the risk of, just sort of, well, December is about the incarnation. April, whatever Easter is sort of when we focus on the resurrection. But we sort of divide up the work of Christ. And part of Christ's work that gets little or no attention, especially if you're if you're not part of a high church tradition, one that has a strong historical liturgy, things like Christ's ascension and enthronement, they get little, if any, attention at all. And so this is something that we're going to lean in on a little bit in our class and hopefully whet your appetite. If we were in class and we had a board, I would draw this for you. I won't tell you how long it took me to make that silly thing on my Word document, Microsoft Word thingy-majigger. It took way too long. But anyway, if we had a whiteboard, I would sort of draw this out and we would work through it together. So I realize it's a little anticlimactic, but this is sort of the trajectory of the work of Christ. And you'll notice in color, there's colors. It's color coded, so it's parallel. We begin in eternity past with the glory of Christ. This is John 17, right? Jesus prays, Father, I pray that I would be able to experience the glory that I had with you, in eternity. Philippians 2, same thing. So the life of Christ begins in eternity past in his glory. In space and time and history, we now begin our descent. Okay, that's the arrow. We are descending to the incarnation. And then the trajectory continues from the incarnation. Sorry about that ding. We decline or descend further now to the death, right? So we're going, if you can see me over here in my screen, we go from the highest of highs in the heavens where Christ is, to the earth where he is incarnated, to a cross where he is killed. Now he's buried into the lowest parts of the earth. 3 days later, he's resurrected. And so now we begin to see the ascent, okay? And my argument here is that most evangelicals stop with resurrection, right? We're fine with glory, incarnation, death, buried, and then just as soon as we begin the uptick, resurrection, we sort of hit the period or the exclamation point. I apologize. I don't know how to make that quit. And that's unfortunate because we are in a sense, missing the rest of the work of Christ, because he is raised from the dead, and then 40 days after his resurrection, he ascends. And then after he ascends, he is enthroned to the right hand of the Father, where he now enjoys, and this is the parallel, he enjoys the glory that he had in before his incarnation. And so what we want to see here is that this descent and this ascent, this is in parallel: glory to enthronement, incarnation to ascension, death to resurrection, and then his burial here is the tipping point. So this intentionally formulates or depicts a V. And the reason is because this is how Christ achieves victory. And if we leave off one of these states of Christ, then again, we sort of rob Christ of his glory and his work, who he is and what he has done. We need to emphasize all of this. So with that in mind, I want us to return, specifically to Ascension and Enthronement. And what I want to do is answer some sort of basic questions that you may or may not have, again, depending upon your sort of theological upbringing and your catechesis and your tradition that you are reared in. I have 3 questions that I want to answer, and then we'll be done with this class. The first is, who is he? The second is, where is he? And the third is, what is he doing? Okay, so after the resurrection, ascension, enthronement, who is he now? Where is he now? And what is he doing now? When it comes to who is he is the God-man, right? And so what began at the incarnation, that is the Son of God taking to himself a human nature, that is something that God was not incarnate before the incarnation, but now, after the incarnation, there will never be a time when the Son of God is not incarnate. That makes sense? So the hypostatic union, again, the joining of the human nature to the divine nature, the hypostatic union is true of the second person of the Trinity, now going forward for eternity. So that is who he is. As the ascended and enthroned one, Jesus Christ is, and forever now will be, the God-man. Where is he? Where is he? Well, we could say 2 things, and they're both really mean the same thing. The Lord Christ is at the right hand of God, Acts 2:33 and 34, okay? Acts 2:33 and 34, that's what Peter tells us in the first Pentecost sermon. Acts 2:33 and 34, he is at the right hand of God. And same sermon right before that, Acts 2:29 through 33, he's seated on David's throne. So to be at the right hand of God and to be sitting on David's throne, that is for Peter one and the same. That's where Christ is. You will sometimes hear of particular Christians or denominations or networks. They're looking forward to the time and when Christ will fulfill the Davidic covenant and sit upon David's throne and rule and reign. Well, my friends, that has happened. That is, has been fulfilled and is being fulfilled according to Acts 2:29 through 33. Where is Christ now? He is on David's throne, which is at the right hand of God. And that leads us to our final question. Well, what is he doing now? We'll say 3 things. 1, he's ruling and reigning. 2, he's putting down his enemies. And 3, he's interceding for his people. Let me give you some scriptures, and you can look these up. What is he doing? He's ruling and reigning. Acts 2:36. As the Lord Christ, he's reigning. Acts 2:36 and Ephesians 1:20 through 23. Ephesians 1:20 through 23. What is he doing now? Christ is not playing solitaire. He's not bored. He's not sleeping. Christ is ruling and reigning. He's also, Acts 2:34 and 35. Acts 2:34 and 35. He's also putting down his enemies. He's putting down his enemies. He's doing this through the proclamation of the gospel, where he turns his enemies into his friends. And then lastly, what is he doing well? And here, Romans 8:31 through 34, and Hebrews 7:20 through 25. Romans 8:31 through 34, Hebrews 7:20 through 25. Christ right now is interceding on behalf of his covenant people. I want you to see then that this office, this state of Christ as the ascended one and as the enthroned one, it has massive implications for how we think about our life, how we think about the gospel, how we think about the church, how we think about the world, how we think about, well, everything. Jesus is ruling and reigning at the right hand of God. He's putting down his enemies, and he's interceding for his covenant people. He's interceding for you if you are, in fact, part of his covenant. Until next time, which is, I think, almost the last time, God bless.